This is Living Well Women, holistic living for sisters over 40. Happiness is holistic. It's multifaceted. It's physical. It's internal. It's my diet and my emotional state. It's all tied in together. Michelle Obama. This is a show for sisters, about sisters, by me and my sisters, Dr. Dravon James and Keisha Dixon. I am Lynnis Wood-Mullins, and we are Women Living Well.
Hi, you're listening to the Women of Living Well Woman. I am Dr. Dravon James. I'm joined by two wonderful women, Lynnis.
Hi.
And Keisha Dixon. And today, ladies or people, ladies and men, we are discussing secrets. We all have them. We all know what secrets are. Secrets need no introduction. But did you know that according to Psychology Today, that keeping secrets adds a huge amount of stress to an already stressful life? How much better would our life be if we could drop some of that stress off of ourselves? If we could let go just some of that stress? And what easier way is there to let go of that than to shed some of those secrets that we have been carrying for years, many of us. So we thought, wouldn't it be great to kick off our community of wellness by telling you some of our secrets and opening up to you, so you'll feel free to open up with each other, people in your group, or maybe join our tribe and join us in the comments, list some secrets that you just want to let out and share and take it out of that secret zone. Because when you hold a secret, how much time we spend making sure we protect and coddle that secret. Who are we protecting really? Does it really matter what somebody else thinks about us? We're trying to appear perfect to an imperfect world. And why? Why? So without any further ado, my big secret is abandonment issues. Can you imagine that? How many of us women, especially women of color, who grew up in homes without dad, may have some issues with safety and feeling secure? I think a lot of women have that issue, don't you, ladies?
Yes. I've heard this before about issues of abandonment, and it shows its way, and it shows up in different ways than what you might think, and it can carry on from childhood into adulthood, into our adult relationships and relationships we have with our men, or sometimes with our girlfriends. The minute something is not consistent with our expectations, or the minute it looks like they might do what we think everyone else is going to do to us or has done to us, then our reaction to them is like over the top. And a lot of times it's because we haven't allowed ourselves to really think about where that's coming from.
Right.
Yeah, I have heard of that before.
And with me, it changes forms, right? It gets really, really sneaky, but it was a fear of attachment, because if you don't get attached, you can't get abandoned. How about that? Right? How about that? So just, keeping everything sort of at arm's length, right? So there's a way to protect myself from abandonment or becoming too clingy, right? And I didn't like the clinginess part, so I just stuck with the detachment part. But it was there, and it all boiled down to having to unwrap some parts of myself and figure out where this is coming from. Why am I feeling this way? For me, I know went all the way back to childhood, growing up without my dad being there and not having that protective covering of a male energy, led me to believe that there may be some problems with being abandoned in the future. And that's how I chose to protect myself. So, and as I've gotten older and stopped trying to pretend to be perfect in an imperfect world, I found myself a lot more peaceful, saying, this is something that I've dealt with and may always deal with, but I'm in a comfortable place because I can sense it when it's happening and put it back in its place.
Yes.
That's one of my big secrets.
Well, that's a big one. And part of being emotionally healthy, like psychologists say, is allowing ourselves to be vulnerable. Mm-hmm. and to share with each other, or to even share with ourselves how we're really feeling. And one thing that's characteristic with Black women and their mental health, and I was just reading an article, it was an op-ed piece in the New York Times that came out in April of 2018 by Dr. Inger Burnett Ziegler. She works at Northwestern University, and she works with a lot of the strong, stressed Black woman syndrome. And one of the things that is the biggest issue is that women feeling comfortable enough to show their vulnerability. They don't want to necessarily show it because it meets outside the norm of what they feel is expected of them, to be strong and resilient and to not vent about what's bothering them, but just kind of like, you swallow all of that and you square your shoulders and you keep going. And she said that is what is slowly killing us, keeping our feelings secret. And I'll share with you my biggest secret. My biggest secret is that, as I've shared before, I have an anxiety disorder. I've had it started back about 30 years ago, based upon a traumatic experience I had in terms of how I found out that my mother had been hit by a fire truck. And rather than deal with the anger and the grief of all of that, I pushed it back. I was busy raising, at that time I had 3 little ones under the age of 4. So I was busy, taking care of them. I was married. I was working in corporate America, traveling, all this different stuff. So I just pushed it back until finally about 20 years after it happened, I had an event and come to find out I had an anxiety disorder. So I worked on that for 10 years. It's been 10 years since I was diagnosed with it. So I no longer have some of the feelings that I used to have when I first wake up in the morning. But when I feel a little anxious, without even realizing it, I pick my right foot. I am a skin peeler, believe it or not. I will take, and as I'm getting older, your skin gets drier, So I usually use a pumice stone or something like that. But I will find myself, in the middle of a stressful phone call or, talking with my husband at the dinner table, and I put that foot underneath and, pulling at the skin. And I didn't really realize that I was doing this until one of my daughters pointed it out to me. I was visiting her for the weekend, and she was saying when she was vacuuming, she says, "Mom, what is that stuff underneath on the side of your bed?" And it's like, wow, I didn't realize I was doing it. So that's my secret. And I know that what's happened is that it's a form of, I guess you could say it's a form of self-mutilation. It's also a form of pacification. I no longer have that anxious feeling like I used to anymore, but now I'm dealing with this part. So I said, okay, time to do more work. The one thing about having been in therapy, and I was in therapy at different times in my life, but understanding that, okay, maybe it's time to dig a little bit deeper and deal with some of those other issues rather than just push it back and keep it secret and not talk about it.
Right, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I want to thank you, Dravon and Lynnis, for sharing your secret. Maya Angelou said, "There is no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside of you." And I definitely believe that to be true. In doing some research, I read a paper in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, which examined individuals, and collectively they had over 13,000 secrets among them. And they said that the average person walking around is carrying at least 13 secrets, 5 of which they will go to their grave with. And that the very act of keeping a secret or having a secret that you feel you need to keep becomes a goal. And when something becomes a goal, our mind does something very fascinating, and that is it hyper focuses on the goal. So the very thought of having to keep the secret is actually more stressful than the secret itself. And that stress weighs on us heavily, and it manifests itself by that the stress will cause us to want to depress or not feel as happy. And it'll show up in our body as aches and pains or even disease. So I commend you both for sharing your secret, and I'm going to share mine. And, for me, growing up in a family that is very tight-knit to the point of being clannish, we never revealed secrets. We did not. And if you go to any 12-step programs or a loved one goes through a 12-step program, they often say, as one of their mantras, one of their mottos, you're only as sick as your secrets. And I share with my clients that you're only as healed to the extent of your secret. So my big secret, my big reveal for the night, and I'm sure I have some family members watching with eyes clenched, wondering what I'm going to say. What I'm going to say is, I have been married twice and divorced twice. I have 6 kids and 3 grandchildren, and I have never been in love with a man, ever. I love my children. I have affection towards my ex-husbands, and God knows I've dated a lot, and I care about people, but I've never actually physically been in love. My definition of love for a man. So that's my big reveal.
You know what? We were talking about this last week, and when I think about that, I think about something else, a secret that a lot of women do not share with themselves, and they don't really admit it to themselves. Sometimes because they don't know what to look for, or other times because it's just a subject you won't talk about. And that has to do with orgasm. Do you know that women age 40 and above, that something like 35% of the women this was a New York Times poll, they said that either they never had an orgasm before, or they weren't sure if they'd had one or not. But the interesting thing about, out of that 35%, about 80% of the women had never shared that with anyone. That was their secret. And they didn't say the percentage, but they said a large majority of them felt that there must be something wrong with them. And many times that's not the case. Many times it's just that that person's or persons you've been with didn't understand the female anatomy, or the woman didn't understand what it was that she was that she needed to do to help bring herself to orgasm, whatever it is, but just has never felt that. And like, some people say, oh, that's not me. And maybe it's not you, but there are a lot of us out there who haven't had that experience, haven't talked about it, and in some cases are just, deciding, well, it's not that important. I mean, where in reality, orgasm is a huge part of your overall wellness and well-being. It's the hormones and everything else that in the chemical processes that are necessary, that we need to experience as women. That needs to happen for your health, if no other reason. It is something that's important, and it's something that we need to talk about.
Yeah. I think what I find most interesting is I listen to all of our secrets. We talk about abandonment, self-mutilation, and lovelessness. These are all things that can have crippling effect on having a full and balanced life. Not that we can't be happy, not that we can't enjoy parts of our life, but we deserve and are entitled to having a full life. And doing that is possible when we can get together like this and have these discussions. Look at, we all talked about being 50 plus years old, and now just talking about, things that we've held for all of these years. And I love when Lynnis opened up, as you said, that the strong Black woman. I have a coworker of mine, and she said that she was going through a really traumatic divorce, and someone said to her, "You're so strong," and it made her so angry. She said, "Why do Black women have to be strong? Why don't we get to play any other role?" Right?
Yeah.
We always gotta play strong.
Yes.
At what point can we be soft? Can we, be treated tenderly? Why is it that we always have to play this strong, mighty role? And when she said that, I really felt her pain. I said, that is true.
Well, it's interesting because this therapist that wrote this article, she was saying that even in the confidential space of her office, during therapy, that a lot of the Black women would cling to their public image of strength, that they didn't realize that there actually is a secret community of strong Black women who do share their distresses, but they don't tell necessarily each other about it. And she was saying that many of us wear this badge, and she was saying, herself included, of the strong Black woman with honor, because we're proud of our tenaciousness and the fact that, we never let the world get to us, but inside we suffer silently. And one of the things, the message that I want to send to people is, you don't have to suffer silently. I know that there seems to be this stigma attached in our communities that there's something really wrong with you if you go to seek therapy, if you, because you're not mentally ill. But I can tell you that even if you're not necessarily what would be considered mentally ill, you will become physically ill if you do not begin to dig deep on some of these secrets that you hold inside of yourself that are making you or can make you physically ill. One of the main reasons for chronic disease and why it seems to happen as you get into your 40s and 50s, your body's breaking down because of all this stuff that you're not letting out.
Yeah, it's poison, and we're not venting. And even I am a big proponent of therapy. If we need to have somebody professionals to talk to, then that is available to us, and we are just as deserving as any other group of people is. But also developing a sisterhood where you can sit amongst your sisters and say, hey, this is what I'm feeling, and not feel judgment. Because we're big with telling each other, hey girl, pull yourself together. But it's okay to break down for a little while amongst your girls and your support networks and let them love on you.
That's right. Yeah. We're talking about the stigma of being a strong, independent Black woman, when one of the strongest things that you can ever do is allow your vulnerabilities to show.
Yes.
That takes great strength and incredible courage. And what it also does is it removes the mask. It dissolves the mask, which is just a wall that we put between us and others that allows us to stay disconnected or detached from forging these phenomenal, powerful relationships. So the more vulnerable we can be with each other, the more connected we'll be with each other, and the more living well we will be doing with one another.
I love it, Keisha. That vulnerability, I think that's the key phrase. Where maybe there's a fear. I don't want to speak, for everyone, but maybe there's a fear of vulnerability because there's a fear of rejection, right? There is a fear of there won't be a safety net there. There won't be warm arms or warm, kind words. In that vulnerable state, you'll be left more raw than what you started off with. And so that badge of strong Black woman is familiar and is protective, right? And that's how
I think that it's really important. When we're in our 20s and 30s, I believe women have a tendency to share a little bit more. You're in college or you're single and you're hanging out with your girlfriends and you're sharing more. But as we get older, I know this from working with so many women over 40 and 50, we have a tendency to self-select out. Or if we are talking to our girlfriends, we don't really talk to them about some of the things that are deep down and dirty with us, like maybe we used to. And part of that might be a pride thing, because after all these years, we should have it together. Another part, I think, has to do with just the self-selecting out in general. As we get older, have a tendency to kind of silo and not reach out. And I want to encourage all of you who are over 40, over 50. The 40s might not see this as much because they're probably still hanging out with their girlfriends from time to time. Girls' night out, you call it, when you have little kids or whatever in your 40s. But 50s and 60s is a little different. And I want to encourage you to not let yourself hovel and stay within yourself, but to reach outside of yourself, even if that means picking up the phone and calling one of your girlfriends you haven't talked to for a while, or developing new relationships. But I truly do believe that the Creator places people in your life for a reason during a season. And if this is your season right now of self-discovery and digging deeper to find out, what is going on in there, there's someone in your life right now or someone that's out there waiting for you to reach out to them that you can speak to. And I'm not just talking about a therapist. Of course, that's important too. But sometimes, even before you get to the therapist part, you just need to be able to unload and vent to get an idea of where you do want to start when it comes to therapy. Either way it goes, there's work involved. And you have to be willing to do the work to get well. Just like anything else that you've ever wanted in your life, you do the hard work, you make the sacrifice, you move forward, and you get it done. Well, your mental health's the same thing. Get it done. Whatever that secret is that you've been holding inside of it yourself, share it with someone that you trust, someone that you know it isn't judgmental, and then dig deep and decide, how is that secret impacting you, and what should your next steps be in order for you to feel more well in your spirit and in your mind.
Yeah. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'll say one quick thing too. For people, there may be some women too who don't have a close person that they can share with. And of course, you don't want to overshare at work or anything. You just don't have that network. Something I read years ago in a book, and I think it was by an author, Brian Tracy. And he gave me this wonderful technique, and I use it. He said, you write yourself a letter, or write a letter where you can expose 3 of your secrets. Don't put your name on it. put it in an envelope, and throw it in the mailbox. It's like releasing.
Yes.
And when I first discovered that I had these abandonment issues from growing up without my dad, and I was like, wow, and I had all this, emotion just started pouring out of me. But I had been that strong Black woman for so many years, and it didn't matter to me. And I knew so many other women who were in that position. But when I really started unpacking that, I just wrote it on a letter, and I filled in the envelope, threw it in the mailbox, and I instantaneously felt like, whew, my gosh, letting that go.
Releasing it and letting it go.
Yeah.
Yes.
If you don't have anybody to talk to, and you can't find a person, you don't want to go to therapy, or don't think you need therapy, that's another good thing to do. It's just that release, just the exercise itself.
Yes.
Yeah, that sounds like a tremendous release. When Lynnis talked about self-selecting, what I like to call that is gaslighting. And it's instances where we're gaslighting ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay, when you're not. When you're not okay, when you're holding on to these things that are actually, because you're not releasing them, re-traumatizing you over and
over again. Yes.
You're so right. You're so right. It is okay not to be okay.
That's
right?
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to admit that you don't have it all together.
That's right.
Sometimes when you're feeling like that, not okay, it's okay to embrace that. In fact, I would suggest you lean into that and allow yourself not to feel okay instead of pushing it back, because pushing it back just inevitably gets you to a point where you've got so much that you've pushed back that it's going to come out one way or another. And for many of us, it comes out in the form of high blood pressure, obesity, other chronic diseases, diabetes, arthritis, all these other things from the toxicity of our feelings and emotions. Over time, it shows itself in our bodies and in our health. So once again, it's not just because of your emotional wellness, but it's also because of your physical wellness. You need to dig deep and start working on those things that you've been hovering for so long.
Yeah, autoimmune diseases, which are on the rise in our country, I mean, the statistics show higher rates than ever before. Number one cause is stress.
Right. Oh my goodness. That's a whole nother show about stress and what it's doing to us. And, we are living in the United States as living while Black, living while African Americans, women. That's how we're living in this country. And there are some systemic things that go along with that are extremely stressful, that unless you've lived it, you really don't understand it. Did you see that video? It's a clip once about this teacher, a professor in college. And she asked, it was a room full of white people, and she asked them how many of them wanted to live as a Black person. And you know how many people raised their hands?
How many?
None. None. Because they know the life of an African American more than likely is stressful, right? Because they help make it stressful, but because it's stressful, they know that.
And then add to that stress that's already inherent in the condition that we could not control, add the stress of keeping secrets on top of that. And oh my goodness, right? Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness. I consider it a miracle that we could spend 5 minutes in somebody else's presence without snapping and having, really volatile situations.
Really? That's true.
Also, so you can do. We're also bound so tight with all the stress, and then there's secrets on top of that. And we're trying to be cordial, and we're trying to be polite, and we're trying to be ladylike, and it's a lot. It's a lot. We need a place where we can come and just say, this is what I'm feeling right now. And like you said, Lynnis, lean into that. Lean into that feeling. You won't strip and stay there forever. What you will do is release.
Yes.
And come back even stronger, authentically strong.
Absolutely. I'd love to challenge our audience this week to just share a secret with someone trusted, or as Dravon had suggested, Dr. Dravon had suggested, drop a letter in the mailbox.
I love that idea.
I love that idea too, because what I really want you to grab hold of is you can be both a mess and a miracle simultaneously.
I love it. A mess
and a miracle. Isn't that something? That is so true.
I love it. I love it. A mess and a miracle.
Wow. That is great wisdom. Wow, ladies, we're almost to the top of our hour, or the top of the half hour, getting ready to go. But what are we going to be talking about next week?
What would you like to talk about next week? Let's talk about orgasms next week.
Oh my goodness.
Let's talk about sex. Let's talk about sex after 40, 50, and 60.
Yes.
Because I have some friends.
Moving into big girl territory.
Yeah, because I have
Yeah.
they haven't had sex for 6 or 7 years, and they're wondering why they're in such a bad mood.
Yeah. That'll change your mood. That will change your mood.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to talk about sex next week. Sex.
Yeah, let's talk about sex.
Sex with partners and sex with self. How's that?
Right.
Okay, very good.
And let's just challenge our listeners to invite a girlfriend, a family member, someone to join you. We really want this community to grow to a tribe of trusted women where we're really getting this message out. And it's a relaxed place to come and hang out and laugh and giggle a little bit and learn something from each other.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. And thank you so much, Ty, for sharing. I see you sharing over there. I appreciate you.
Oh, thank you. And please make sure you take a look at the replay. It's going to be at YouTube, and you see our bit.ly right there. It's bit.ly Living Well Woman. We'll be back.
Helps you the whole thing. It's bit.ly Living Well Women.
Women, right. And we'll be back again next week at the same time on the same station, talking about all the things that we think are important and that we care about when it comes to being well in your mind, body, and spirit. This is Lynnis signing off.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. See you next week.
Next week.
See you next week. Take care. God bless.
Thank you for tuning in to Living Well Women. Join us next time when we will discuss other topics of holistic living. Nothing is off limits when it comes to sisters supporting sisters. Please subscribe to our YouTube page by clicking the link below so you can stay updated on all the details when it comes to being a holistic living well sister.